The Haverford Township Free Library and the Historical Society of Haverford Township are pleased to welcome guest speaker Art Skiba. He's Haverford High School class of 1968 to give his talk, A Century of Haverford High School Athletics and Beyond. Mr. Skiba is a retired Kentucky educator and coach who has received several awards, including, but not limited to, Kentucky Teacher of the Year and two-time Kentucky Coach of the Year. He presently serves on the Haverford High School Sports Hall of Fame Committee as their historian, contributes financially towards Haverford's athletic scholarships, and has been inducted into 6 Halls of Fame as either an athlete, teams he coached, or as an individual coach. We are happy to have Art, and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for that introduction. Before we get started, a couple things here. Number one, this is a 5-volume set that has been put together over a 12-year period of time. And it used to be a 2-volume set, then 3, then 4, now it's 5, 1,318 pages. Tonight, I was asked to present a sequence of pages from the book, which I will show you and say a little bit about them, but I will not spend much time. If you want to know more about the story, then you are certainly welcome to come to the library, the Haverford Township Free Library, and check out the books as long as you're staying in the library and read more about it. I will go over more about this later. This first slide up here has the my career background. I'm in the class of 68. All right, I put 4 years in the military and then went to Eastern Kentucky University and got a degree in teaching and athletics. All right, and part of my career and what made me go into this was I wanted to give back to athletics what it gave me while I was growing up. And that was what helped me move on. It was about dedicating my life to the children. It's 150% dedication. It's not 100%. 100% is when you go in, do your job, get your paycheck, and go home. 150% is when you're doing more than what's asked of you. And I always say the proof is in the pudding. I want to read something to you. I have to, whenever I'm in a Hall of Fame and I give recognition, I always talk about Haverford. So I want to talk about these athletes. These are just statistics here. I had the honor of coaching 118 all-state athletes. They came to work, they did their part, and they wanted to win. Think about the Phillies. They want to win. They're coming to practice. They're working hard. They are wanting to win. I coached 37 individual track or cross-country champions. And a regional champion would be similar to a district championship today in Pennsylvania. I coached 7 regional championship teams, 10 regional runner-up teams, 4 cross-country state champions that were labeled Mr. Kentucky. 3 times athletes were named Gatorade Runner of the Year. 2 times I had USA High School All-American athletes. And I had 3 state runner-up teams and 1 state championship team. But the most proud moment I have is the fact I had 95 academic all-state athletes, and that means I had a grade point average of 3.80 or better. I also coached 39 teams that had a grade point average of 3.45 or better. And 32 athletes I coached went on to success in the college level with a scholarship. This particular picture you see up here, the picture of the cross-country course, this was named after me. The day that was done, my thoughts were, when they said, say thank you, I said, well, it's not about me, it's about the athletes. And that's what it always was. It's about the athletes. It's never about me. And you see this is blurred, but I had tears in my eyes when they gave me that Hall of Fame wing shoe. That's a heavy piece of metal that they gave me. That is, out of 100 years of track and field cross country in Kentucky, I was only the 123rd person was ever inducted. I thought all the coaches, there had to be a whole lot more, but there weren't. Okay. Now the next slide. This is there are 5 things I did for Haverford. Giving back to Haverford. So I hit 5 things. The first thing was being part of their Hall of Fame committee as a research specialist. And then the second thing was I put all this research into these volumes here. And the table of contents is like this. This part from here to here is identical in all 5 volumes. And this part from here to here is in all 5 volumes. This part is the athletes, the teams, they're all mentioned there. There are 750 some stories about athletes and 653 stories about teams that are in the book. So you imagine there's an awful lot here, but I'm only going to pick out a few here. And then each one of the volumes is specific to certain sports. Okay. And each time I have to add another volume, I have to readjust what goes in the volumes. This is a labor of love. I will tell you this right now. I love Haverford. I don't love the other schools. I may like them, but I love Haverford. I will do anything I can for Haverford. And another person likes to play on this. My name. This is a work of art, and I agree with that, because when I do a page, I put myself on that page and say, how can I make this page be the best page in the whole book? Well, there are 1,318 pages that are the best pages in the book. Okay. Anyway, this is number 2 thing. The number 3 thing I did was around the time my father passed away, there was a lot of donations for scholarships being stopped. They just didn't want to donate anymore. So Mrs. Patterson, AD at the time, asked me about this, and I agreed to give 2 scholarships, one male and one female, for athletes. And in a way, it was pretty good, because there had been a Shuba at this school since 1937, or a descendant of a Shuba, and the last one graduated in 2015. But anyway, each year we give them 2 scholarships, one male and one female. The 4th thing I did for Haverford was every time I come back, I look at those trophy cases. They were a holy mess. There's too many trophies. They were obsolete. And when I started looking around for the MVP awards, they were no longer in existence. There was a asbestos contamination 85, a flood in 95, and a renovation period in 2000. And all the log books, score books, and MVP trophies were gone. They were thrown away. A lot of things were thrown away. Well, I went back to the yearbooks and got a hold of the pictures, and I brought back to life those MVP awards, made them look just like it. And I got all the recipients. I've looked up all the people's names on them. And I'll never forget, the first one I finished was the football one. Pete Donaghy comes into the front office. He sees that trophy. He looks behind it, because that's where his son's name was. There are so many names on it. And he looks back there, and there's his son. Here comes Greg DeSena. His name is on it. He goes by there and looks for his name. It's a crowd pleaser. When people come into Haverford, they see those MVP. They want to see the names, who were the outstanding athletes. Anyway, we also cleaned out the trophy cases. All the obsolete trophies are gone. All the flies have been dead for 10 years. I buried in a grave. I put pledge on there, fixed them up, cleaned the dust the place, fixed up the trophies, shined them up and everything. And now the trophy cases are nice looking. The 5th thing I did, I'll talk about later. The history of Haverford's education starts in 1849. And this is a picture of the federal school building. And today it stands as a monument for the commitment of education to the community of Haverford Township. The history of Haverford High School starts in 1906 with the Lanark School. It is a 2-year high school diploma. This is the original Lanark School. And if you look real closely, this piece and this piece still exist. All they did is redo the front to look like this. Okay. And in 1910, it moved to Chestnut Wall, becomes a 3-year high school diploma. In 1911, the Oakmont building was constructed and opened. And this is a picture of the Oakmont building when it first made. And if you look at the Oakmont building in its completion, all it is this part right here, over there to 4 windows to the left. And in 1917, they put 4 windows to the right. And if you can think about the Brookline School, because that was in the papers and news recently, that's what the building looked like. Most of the elementary schools were built like that. And in 1931, they added the wings onto it, right here and right here. And that is the present day elementary school, which is now the present day superintendent's building. You can see a picture right here of how it looked with the windows to the left and the windows to the right. The boys entered on one side of the building, the girls entered on the other side of the building. This building, Oakmont building, got so crowded that they had to build a high school in 1923. This is the very first building called the Haverford High School building. And remember, this is now a 4-year diploma, grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. The first graduating class from that Oakmont school was in 1916. 14 people, 3 of them are boys, the rest of them are girls. Must have been a heck of a prom. Okay, now this building was built and this got to be crowded, so then now they had to build another building next to it, and that is called the junior high. This is the aerial shot. This is the high school, and then here is the junior high. Okay, this is 1923 or 26 when they built this building, and this now becomes grades 9, 10, no, excuse me, 7, 8, 9. And this is now 10, 11, and 12. And it stayed that way for a long time till around the mid 70s to 80s. And they connected these two. They also built over here where G is, and that is the high school. This was the high school as it is today. This little device right here is a Ford logo. They have taken that down. There's no longer anywhere to be found. And I'll say more about that later on. There's a lot of things on here. Historically, number one here is the Brookline Square and Brookline Athletic Area, A and B, the swimming pools up there. That no longer exists. That's the tennis courts and a lot of the practice field for the football program. This baseball field, here's the original baseball field on the football field. And they moved over here. And this today, where this would be located, would be in right field of the present day baseball field. This is where the present day baseball field exists. Again, here is G. This is where they build the high school. Okay. Haverford was known as the Warriors prior to 1929, and the girls were not. It was inappropriate to call them Warriors at that time. There's a lot of things that are a little different, but they called the girls Lassies or Haverford's Red and Gold Gals. But what happened is, in the articles, for example, this particular one has Haverford Warriors, but in the paragraph, it also talks about the Fords of Haverford. So when we have something like that, it began to catch on. Hey, we need to call these teams the Fords, Haverford Fords, rather than Haverford Warriors. Well, they got this approved with the Board of Education, and it all came about at the right time because Jean Shiley just got back from the Olympics in 1928, in the summer 28, and here's her senior year. We're not going to call those girls Lassies. We're going to call them Fords. And it didn't become official with the logo until the mid 30s. What happened is Dr. Mensker, who was the assistant basketball coach and then becomes the assistant superintendent. Well, he has a friend in Hollywood, and he asked them to design some comical sketches of a Ford. And the students come back and pick this particular design, but they add one thing to it: this white cap. This is a representation of the U.S. Navy ball cap. It's a white cap, and it's there in remembrance of the spirit of the armed forces in World War I, but especially World War II. Haverford's athletic program goes back way back into the elementary and the junior high grades. Here is a picture of 1949, the Manoa Girls Elementary field hockey team. Below that is a 1933 Oakmont Elementary football team. And notice the helmets, notice the uniforms, notice the equipment, everything is different. And this is a very key factor because Jean Shiley, who is an Olympic, when she goes to get married, she's looking for a place to stay where her children will have a quality athletic program. And to come to find out that Haverford is so far ahead when she was in Haverford going to school. Here is the junior high program. It's quite extensive with the same sports that are in the high school, and there's many more in high school. But what's good about the elementary and the junior high, or middle school as it's called today, is they are learning fundamentals. They're learning fundamentals of how to play the game as well as how to play as a team. and to move on so that when they get to the high school, they have more competitive schedules and they play other teams outside of this area. Okay. Haverford has a lot of awards at the end of the year, but two I'm picking out here: outstanding senior athlete. The female athlete is named after Ethel David. She is a pioneer of women's sports for Haverford. She coached 5 sports at one time, plus was the athletic director. She did everything she could to get equal playing time, equal time in the gym, uniforms, a comparable schedule. Keep in mind, many schools did not have women's sports. They just had boys, and a lot of it was just football, basketball, baseball, and track. The girls didn't have much, if any, sometimes. The outstanding female senior athlete is named after Ethel David in her honor. The boys athlete is named after Norman Wigan. He was the outstanding athlete in his class of 1938. He goes to NC State. He plays football and baseball. He also is enrolled in the ROTC program. He enjoys it. He loves it. And he enlisted in the Army. And in November 25th, 1945, his plane, the Shack Cappy, is shot down. The students, the athletes, the administration, the coaches, the parents honor him with this award each year, the outstanding male athlete. He is a war hero. In 1970 is a very historical year for Haverford's boys athletic program. They accumulated over 100 wins. They had never before had 90 wins. If you take all the sports, add them together, how many wins did they have? Today, it is awfully difficult to have less than 100 wins because you have much more of a variety of sports to choose from, and you have a much greater schedule, more competition, more games to play. So it's easy to get 100 victories today. But back then it was difficult. That's the first year they had 100, they had 120 that year, in fact. But they also had, look at the outstanding teams: volleyball, wrestling, basketball, football, baseball. Everything was outstanding. Even the athletes: Ray Edelman, Randy Grossman, Steve Joachim, Dave Allen, Bruce McCoy. These were outstanding athletes that told the tales of how big this athletic program was in 1970. They also keep up with the wins for coaches. And you have to have 100 wins to get on this page. But the next person who should enter it would be Lauren Pelicane. She just needs 21 victories to get there this year, and that should happen. We have 8 former athletes that became Olympians. Jean Shiley placed 4th in the high jump in 1928. In 1932, she placed 1st. She beat a very famous female athlete named Babe Dietrichson. And she wasn't the main athlete. She's just the one that was noted more than anybody else. There's another lady, Martha Tarkington, who was just as good, but had she been in the Olympics, we'd be talking about her also. I will tell you more about her later. But the track team was led by all these girls on the basketball team, and especially Martha Turkington and Jean Shiley. And then they also did the same thing in basketball, and they did the same thing in field hockey. All right, Maria and Ann Yannick, they were bronze team medalists for rowing. It was the first time rowing was in the Olympics in 1976. Emily Del Rio and Shane Wiley both got, Emily was a pentathlon. It was 5 different events: pistol shooting, horse jumping, running, swimming, things like that. But based on how many points you get, is based upon how well you performed in that thing. And she received a silver medalist. Shane Wiley Culpepper, she married a person who was a very good trainer for running. And she was in the Olympics in 2000, 2004, and she placed 9th in the 1,500 meter run. She was a national champion in 2007 in those runs. Renee Heichel-Cuddy was also a rowing person, as she was the 2nd qualifier for the Olympics. And I forget what years they were, but she placed silver or gold or bronze medalist in the world championships in rowing. Brandon Hansen, here is for a sport. He is probably one of the best athletes ever, just for a sport. Okay. He was the Pennsylvania Swimmer of the Year. He was undefeated all 4 years in high school. He goes to Texas, which is a very great swimming college, and he does quite well there. But he gets in the Olympics 3 times, and he is always a bronze or silver medalist. He did get a gold medal in each of the Olympics, but that was not individual. That was with a relay team, and one of his relay persons was Michael Phelps. Shane Ryan, here's another outstanding swimmer for Haverford. I forget how many state championships he has with it. I think it's 16. He goes on to Penn State and helps them do quite well. Outstanding college swimmer, but he's just tenths of a second to hundredths of a second off from qualifying for the U.S. swimming team. His father is an Irishman, so he has Irish background. He can go to Ireland and swim for Ireland, which is what he does. For the last 2 Olympic Games, he's been swimming for Ireland, and the next time he will be swimming for Ireland also. David Abrams is a Paralympic silver medalist. The last time they had these in 2020, I met him in class while substitute teaching. He is legally blind. He can see, because I asked him, how can you swim and be blind? He says, I can see, it's hazy, but I know what I'm doing. Okay, now the rest of this, all the sports will be moving pretty quickly here. I say very little bit here. Ali Cornog. When Ali Cornog and Ethel David were hired, and George Entwistle, that's when Haverford became a top 5 team in the conferences. They were either first or second place for quite a few years in all sports. Ali Cornog coached 6 sports. If I can name them all: football, basketball, baseball, track, rifle, and golf. All right. And the field is named after him, the Ali Cornog football field. Gus Ranieri, athlete at Haverford, goes on to get a medical degree. Dr. Gus Ranieri. He donates the trophy for the Haverford Upper Darby Thanksgiving Turkey Bowl game. Haverford has won 51 of those contests. Upper Darby has won 45, and together they have 6 ties. And these are the scores of all the times they played each other. The Turkey Bowl this year is the 100th anniversary of the Turkey Bowl. All right. Steve Joachim and Randy Grossman. Here are some 2 athletes. What a combination during 1970 or during the 69 season. Steve Joachim throws 61 touchdown passes and breaks the state record his senior year. Coincidentally, the person's record he broke at that time was the quarterback for the USC Trojan football team on the collegiate level. Steve Joachim is 3rd place in the Heisman Trophy at the end of the season, his senior year, but he wins the Maxwell Award for the outstanding football player in NCAA. If you don't know much about the Maxwell Award, it is an award by the Maxwell Club on the eastern side of the state. But Peyton Manning, who I know everybody's heard of, he is one of the recipients of that award in later years. Randy Grossman, all his records in pass receiving and yardage have stood until 2018. He goes on to college at Temple, and then when he graduates, nobody drafts him. Coincidentally, the NFL players go on strike. Randy is invited to the Pittsburgh Steelers camp. He makes the team. Randy is the only tight end in NFL history that has 4 Super Bowl rings from the same team. Now, records are made to be broken. Jack Donaghy breaks Steve Joachim's records. And the last game of the season is when he broke his touchdown passing record and yardage. 19 seconds to go, Upper Darby is ahead in the game. And the kickoff, and Haverford gets the ball in the 4th down with 19 seconds to go. Haverford's backed up. Jack throws this long pass downfield. Chris Trainer jumps up, and as he's coming down, the ball is coming down. It gets in his one hand, and he brings it down. To this day, this is known as the catch. And then 2 plays later, Haverford takes it in for a touchdown and wins the ball game. Jake Ruan breaks all of Jack Donaghy's records. And then 1 year later, all of his records are broken by this next person, Trey Blair. He was known as Superman because he could fly. He was a 4-sport athlete. He only played baseball 1 year, but he He's fast in track. He's on an excellent track team that one year. It's a shame for COVID-19 because they would have done quite well nationally, not just Central League or statewide, but nationally. They had a 5-year run for those years with Trey Blair of 48 wins. No other team in 5 years of history had even 40 wins. And if you look at number 10 down here, he is actually flying in the air. That's why this is called Superman Can Fly, this whole photo here, trying to block extra points. He did that twice that year. The football MVP is named after a war hero. All right. Remember, girls are named after pioneers. Boys seem to be war heroes. Larry Gelbick was the quarterback for the 1937 football team. He goes and serves his country and is killed in the Battle of the Bulge. They named the MVP after him. This is identically to what the team trophy looked like. It was actually this tall, from here to here, but with all the names and everything else, even on the back side, I redid the whole thing, got it done, and now this stands in the trophy case where the football trophies are. Field hockey. Martha Turkington and Jean Shiley lead this team in scoring. 26 and 27, they were champions. In 28, they were runner-up. It is a teamwork sport, and they work together. And this is the only team picture we have of that group of girls. Over here on this page here, this is the 1975 Girls State Championship field hockey team, the first one in their history. They've had two. Ann Kearns is the first field hockey person to receive a full field hockey scholarship to St. Louis University. Helena Herman, outstanding career and team career with Haverford in field hockey, lacrosse, and basketball. She goes to the University of Maryland and plays lacrosse. 3 of those years, they are NCAA champions. When she graduates, she's offered a position to be a graduate assistant in an assistant coaching role for the lacrosse team. And guess what? She has another national championship team. This time they're undefeated. So her resume now has 4 NCAA championship teams. Ryan Jones, here she's an outstanding field hockey player, but she's even more of a track runner. Her records still stand in the 100, 200, 400, 800, although some of them are within tenths of a second of being broken. And in field hockey, she is single season goals and assists. Right? And she is an All-American in these sports. Jess McCarthy is the #1 person in scoring goals, points, and assists. The 1969 Central League Championship Wrestling team was coached by Dale Bonsall. He only coached here 5 or 6 years. In that period of time, he's 43-3. He had 5 undefeated teams, 4 of which were for the freshman wrestling team. Keep in mind, at that time, high school for boys and girls was grades 10, 11, and 12. Okay. David Hartman is a crowd pleaser because he's blind. People like to see him wrestle. They want to see how well he can handle another person on the mat who can see. And that's what they like. Laird Robertson was our first state champion in wrestling. He was undefeated at 145 pounds. He did this in 1943. Girls basketball. Here's this girl, Martha Turkington again, and Jean Shiley. In 1927, the girls basketball team upset this team, and they were now the champions of that conference. In 28, that same team they now beat them, so they were runner-up. And remember now, in 28, Jean Shiley goes to the Olympics. She comes back. These girls, they rally around her. They see her in a different way. She has something in her. She's seen these big-time athletes from all over the world, and the girls mimic them. They want to be like her. So they have a great season. They are undefeated. They were the undefeated Delaware County champions and state champions of Eastern Pennsylvania. In their 3-year history, they were 40 wins, 4 losses, and 1 tie. Martha Turkington averaged 22.4 points a game. If she'd have played just 5 more basketball games, she would have had 1,000 points without any problem based upon her statistics. That's a shame. But those articles you see right here, I found those about the team, and I put them in the book for people to read. Then in 1964-65, the girls basketball team is undefeated. They're even undefeated going into the last game of the 66 season. They have a 24-game winning streak. Today, that is still the record. Judy Kears, according to Ed Kallenbach, is the best athlete ever in the history of Haverford High School. She was the leading scorer for the girls lacrosse team and field hockey team her junior and senior year. She was the leading scorer in basketball her sophomore, junior, and senior year. She became really good in basketball back in the elementary grades because she played basketball with the boys. She played baseball, Little League baseball one summer. The referees sometimes would go up to Judy and say, "Would you not throw the ball so hard into the lacrosse goal because I'm afraid you're going to hurt somebody." When Judy got married, she was in Florida. She played basketball, not with the women, in the men's basketball league because she could handle the men. She knew how to play against them. She was that good. Many people have told me they still agree that she is the best athlete. Bobby Morgan. Here, she was an MVP of her basketball team her senior year. She goes on to the University of Richmond, plays basketball. Then she starts her coaching career. She coaches high school and college. She has 591 wins to this day total, and she's still coaching. Several of the girls basketball players that played for her and Coach Hamilton scored 1,000 points, and they honor those people with 1,000 points in a banner in the gymnasium. There's one that stands out, Margaret Elderton. She is the all-time leading scorer for girls basketball. According to Bobby Morgan, when somebody asks her who is the best, and she says, "There's only one, Margaret Elderton. You know, you can't separate her from anybody else. She is the best." She was a two-time MVP for the Central League, and she goes on to have an outstanding college career. This is the photos of the leading scorer for girls basketball, Margaret Elderton, almost 1,600 points, and Ray Edelman, 1,443. Keep in mind, Margaret Elderton had 4 years of high school basketball. Ray Edelman only had 3 years. There's one thing about this particular photo. Well, I'm going to talk about that later, but the photo over here, Spencer Foster. This is the first basketball team in Haverford, 1929 or 22, 23. They were known as the Haverford Warriors. And this fellow in the middle, Spencer Foster, was also a pretty decent track athlete at the time. Okay, all his medals from track and field are on display in the track trophy cases. The 1932 and 33 basketball team, it's the only time in basketball, boys basketball, that they had back-to-back conference championships. The girls basketball team had 5 straight conference championships under Bobby Morgan. This 1941 basketball team, very sad story here. They had one loss the first half of the season. They just beat Lower Merion 25-20 to be in first place. The second half of the season begins, 2 of the boys go in the military. Haverford only won 1 game the rest of the season. 1950, they were Suburban 1 League and District champions. I don't know what the date was or what year, but there's a certain year in which you have to win the conference in order to get into the PIAA state tournament. After that, then it becomes, you have to have so many teams can be in it. But in 1950, you had to win it to get in there. The 1970 team, when they were 1969 team, they lost their last game or one of those games, and they couldn't go to the state tournament. But anyway, this particular team, they end up in the Final Four of the state tournament. John Maglio, Big John, Little John. Big John was John Edelman, Little John was John Maglio. John Maglio was a crowd pleaser, scoring and rebounding, dribbling. He was a team person, set the stage for all the plays, everything. He goes on to NC State to play basketball. They have 2 conference championships. And the same thing applies in the NCAA. You have to win the tournament in order to go to the NCAA tournament at that time. Many things that come out of the ACC tournament, we do today in basketball. Have you ever seen a conference championship where a team wins it? What's the first thing they're doing when it's all over? They're cutting down the net. That started in the ACC tournament. Also, your all tournament team, your all coach of the year, your player of the year, all of that was from there. John Mago went on to play for the Cincinnati Royals professional basketball team. Al Kimberlin, he was part of the 57-58 state championship team. He goes on to play for a very elite basketball program in the Ivy League in Princeton. Bernie Schaefer and Tom Liebig. These two have something in common. They played for Villanova. Bernie Schaefer, they win their conference title and go on to play in the NCAA tournament. Tom Liebig walks on after an outstanding career at Haverford, makes the team, and in 2016 and 2018, Villanova are NCAA champions. When he graduates, he's offered a graduate assistant position as a coach for the Villanova Wildcats. Ray Edelman and this championship, this state runner-up team. What's interesting about this team, they set a record, 109 points scored in a state tournament game without a three-point line. Could you imagine how many points they would have scored had we had a three-point line? Interesting. Bruce Hulse sets a record for rebounds in a game. This is an unbelievable basketball team. The team that beat them were just bigger and stronger. I put this page in here on this video program because I wanted people to realize how difficult it is for me to get statistics. The three things that sell this research project are the stories, athletes and teams, but also the color pictures. You've seen some color pictures here, but you imagine all the color pictures I have in here. That's what's a crowd pleaser on the thing. They love looking at the pictures. It makes it more interesting to look at. But the statistics, I have a difficult time getting these from some of the coaches. Some give them to me gracefully. Some of them I get online. Some of them I have to read the newspapers. Others I just don't get. And that's what hurts this thing, because there are people 20 or 30 years from now that want to see, where did I rank in that team or on those statistics? And I don't understand why athletic directors or whatever coaches don't make a commitment to turning these in. Nobody else has something like this in any schools, has a program that has their whole history of the athletic program. Why in the world can't we get all the statistics in here? I don't know. But this started as a half a page. All it was, just a half a page, boys and girls. And then it's developed into two big pages, boys and girls. It should really be 4 pages. The track records were a half a page. Now they're 7 pages. Baseball was once 1 page. Now it's 3 pages. Softball was 1 page. It is now 5 pages. Give you an example. Steve Younger is a historic legend for Haverford. This is the 5th thing I did for Haverford. I got him into the National High School Athletic Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2010. I was up there the year before because I was one of the national finalists for Coach of the Year. And I came back. The night when they had all this Hall of Fame induction, I said, where is Steve Younger's name? I came back. I was on a mission for 1 year. 1 year later, I got him in. Steve Younger came to Haverford as an assistant football coach and basketball coach. 1 year later, he's the head basketball coach. He always coached JV football. He's part of the football program. And he also officiated football games on the college level. Girls lacrosse, Christine Saylor. What an amazing athlete and coach. She goes to Harvard to play field hockey and lacrosse. She has a coaching career at Princeton. She has 3 NCAA championships. She's a 3-time coach of the year. She finished her career with 433 collegiate wins on the girls lacrosse program. Laura Harmon, here's an outstanding athlete in field hockey, basketball, and lacrosse. She was a mainline Times and Delco Athlete of the Year. She goes to the University of Maryland, and she plays field hockey and lacrosse. She's on 2 national championship teams in lacrosse and 1 in field hockey. In high school, she has 32 plus goals in field hockey, and that plus is because I don't have the rest of these statistics. I just can't get them for some reason. And she has 1,038 points in basketball. Ashley Motoraki. What an athlete. Okay. She is the Girls Lacrosse Player of the Year in 1998 and the Mainline Times Athlete of the Year for all sports. What's interesting, she is on 3 Central League championship teams her senior year: volleyball, basketball, and lacrosse. Like mother, like daughter. Nancy McGoldrick, what a story. Has a stellar career in high school. She goes on to Westchester, and she brings home a national championship in girls lacrosse. She gets married. She has 2 children. The first one goes to Westchester, and they bring home a national championship in lacrosse. Then the second one goes on to Westchester, and guess what? She brings home a national championship in lacrosse. 3 people from the same family go to the same school, play the same sport, 3 national championships for that college. Girls lacrosse here, Katrina Geiger, 3-time All Central League and Delco Daily Times Player of the Year. She's a Delco Scholastic Athlete of the Year and a Philadelphia Lacrosse Player of the Year. She is number 1 in all the statistics. You see single season and career, assists, goals, and points. And it's no wonder why her uniform number 8 was retired. Boys lacrosse here. Bob Bush, he gave me everything in this book I needed to know about lacrosse, the whole history of it. He kept up with everything, even soccer. He had help from Ted Kaiser. What an amazing person. He became member of an elite club of high school coaches in lacrosse, over 100 victories. This statistic page is important here. Ken Leonard, I'm still looking for his 1966 statistics. I found the 40, but the sports page was missing. That's where I was told they would be. But anyway, he still holds the record for the average points in a game, 4. All games he played, 4 points a game. But the number 1 player right now of all time is Bob McClure. He has had a fabulous career at Haverford, in not just in football, but also in lacrosse. John Linehan, he has 422 wins as a high school coach in lacrosse, 4 state championships at Lower Merion, and 2 runner-ups. He played football, basketball, and lacrosse at Haverford. He's in 3 Hall of Fames because of his lacrosse coaching. Ken Leonard, his goal was to keep on playing lacrosse after high school, after he served his military time. Unfortunately, he died in Vietnam. Another war hero, MVP award named after him. These 6 athletes right here, Justin McCarthy and Carl Bauer, excellent lacrosse players. Also in football, their lacrosse team in 1995 was ranked 5th in the state. These other 4 athletes, Bob McClure, Luke Callahan, Michael Romovsky, and Daniel Tierney. Daniel Tierney is a small fellow, but boy, he's hard-nosed. And 3 quality lacrosse seasons, 38 wins, 3 postseason appearances. Girls softball. They were state runner-up in 2021, and they had a pitcher named Emma Taylor. Right? And there was 1 year they didn't play because of COVID-19. But Emma broke records far and above and beyond the other records that anything they're there in softball. She had lots of academic awards and scholarship opportunity right here. She had postseason awards, including a 2-time Delco Player of the Year. And her records, 21 single season wins, her career wins, 50-some, 5 no-hitters, strikeouts in a single season, strikeouts for a career. These are far above and beyond any other girl that played softball. It's going to take something. And she did it in only 3 years' time. Jimmy Dykes, he graduated in 1914. All right. He goes on to the military, World War I, then comes back. He plays baseball for the Philadelphia Athletics. First 2 years, they win the World Series. The third years, they're in the World Series, but they lose it. Jimmy Dykes, during his playing career in professional baseball, meets up with George Halas. He plays for the Yankees. They become friends. George Halas decides, I'm going to play football for the Chicago Bears. He eventually coaches it. Jimmy Dykes, after his playing career, begins coaching for the Chicago White Sox. He is the leading all-time wins for the managers in Chicago White Sox history. He meets up with George Hallis. They renew their friendship. George Hallis funds the trophy for the Jimmy Dykes Award for Haverford baseball. And it is given to the most improved player who possessed the outstanding baseball skills. And Jimmy Dykes came back to Haverford to present that trophy in 1938. We've had 18 professional baseball players. Some make it to the majors, some do not. D. Felice pitched at Haverford for Haverford in 1993 and 1994 championship teams, and he gets drafted by the Colorado Rockies, and he's pitching at Veterans Stadium. Of course, Paul Bogosian's there, takes a picture of him pitching on the mound against the Phillies. John Edelman, 10-0 in his senior year in pitching and a 0.00 ERA. He is a $4,000 bonus baby for the Milwaukee Braves. Well, I hope I can remember all this. June 2nd, he goes to Ebbets Field to play the Dodgers. And he pitches against Roy Campanella, Sandy Amos, Gil Hodges, who he struck out, and he gets Jackie Robinson to pop out. Later that month, he goes to Wrigley Field to play against the Chicago Cubs, and he gets Ernie Banks to ground out the double play. At the time, they weren't famous athletes, except for Jackie Robinson. But today we look back on, wow, he did all that. And he only did it in 1 year, and that was it. Rick Taylor. If you heard the name Taylor, that's Emma Taylor's grandfather. And you're going to hear another Taylor this coming year, he's already in high school, Liam Taylor. Excellent athlete. Rick was excellent. Baseball, football, basketball. He was the smallest guy on the basketball team at 6'4". They had quite a basketball team in 1964. He goes on to coach at Springfield, and they are champions in football. He's a 3-time coach of the year. Paul Bogosian has 324 victories at Haverford as in baseball coach. They had a nice send-off for him his last year. Every place he went, they had pictures, things like that. But the very last game, they did a nice big farewell tour for him. And they named the dugout after him. Here's another example of somebody beyond. The book is called Haverford, A Century of Haverford Athletics and Beyond. And beyond means beyond your high school career and beyond whatever else. Gary was a Central League baseball and football player his senior year. He goes to college in a scholarship at Eastern Kentucky University, and during his sophomore year, he has to sit out a year because the NCAA came up with a ruling and they predate it to his freshman year. And it affected quite a few athletes in college athletics. It has to do with the core grades you have as well as your entrance examination grades. So he has to sit out a year. During that time, he's running cross country with the running distance with the cross country team and the distance runners for the track team. He doesn't ever play baseball again. He becomes a national class distance runner. He's 11 seconds away from being a world-class distance runner. His average mile time in a marathon was 5:38. His marathon time was 2:37 something in the Boston Marathon. And he also had a sponsorship from Reebok. Cheerleading, back-to-back state champions. 9 times they were Central League champions, 9 times they were runner-up, 9 times they went on to nationals. I always played 9 in the lottery. Anyway, I'm looking for a girl who her name is Gail Packman. She has a unique thing about cheerleading. She cheered for Haverford. She cheered in college, which I think was Cornell, but she also cheered for the Philadelphia Eagles. Ice hockey. This program is 52 or 53 years old. It started when Ronnie Lindbergh moved down here from Minnesota. And after football season, he's looking for the ice hockey team. They don't have one. Well, somehow they got one started. And during that period of time, Haverford has won 5 Flyers Cup championships. Now you have Flyers Cup on the east side, Penguin Cup on the west side, and they meet for the championship, the state cup. Haverford won the state championship in 1992. All right. They also won the Flyers Cup in all those years you see up there, but the state championships in 1992. They have a great program. If you've ever been to an ice hockey game down at the stadium, you'll understand what I'm saying. They are absolutely excellent athletes. I cannot believe how well they play their sports. And Haverford is always up there in the top of the Central League standings. Ronnie Lindbergh went on to college at Franklin Marshall, plays football and ice hockey and baseball. He has a brain tumor. He loses his life. They name a scholarship in his honor at Franklin Marshall, and Haverford names the MVP award in ice hockey in his honor. Swimming. Maddie Hart. If there's anything to talk about Haverford's athletics besides track and cross country, this swimming program is hardly ever heard about, but whether do they have a lot of quality teams and athletes. Maddie Hart breaks records year after year after year and is named Swimmer of the Year. When she finishes, she has about 9 records that she's on. Haverford's had 20 athletes that were PIAA state champions. Carrie Smith, here's an athlete that did everything she could to be part of this team, and she was a freestyle swimmer. She's still on the leaderboard. She's not the top, but she's still on the leaderboard. She goes to college and helps Penn State have 2 conference championships. Then she goes on a coaching tour. And now, 2 years ago, she just landed her dream job of all, wherever you could imagine. She is the men's and women's head coach for swimming and diving at LaSalle University. Kataya, I can't pronounce his last name, but she's still swimming at Haverford. She has every record possible. She swims in every event each year, and she's always at the top. And then she figures out what she's going to do in the state. And she has 3 or 4 gold medals in the state competition. Track and field, Brian Munching and his brother Mark pole vaulters, state champions. Brian is also an MVP in football and an outstanding wrestler. The girls' track team were state runner-up last year. They also had relay athletes that were quality, and those relay athletes is what helped them get that state runner-up. And I know this as a former track coach. When you have a relay team that does quite well, they can all do individual events, and that's what helped these girls become a state runner-up. The boys' relay team is also just as good. They placed 5th in this state competition, and I'm getting ready to go officiate their cross-country meet this weekend, but I'm looking forward to seeing these athletes perform again. These athletes, they have broke records or within tenths of a second of breaking records that have stood for over 50 years. George Sidnor and Reggie Sidnor. George just died recently. Both are 100-yard dash state champions. And both played football. One scored 13 touchdowns, the other scored 29 touchdowns. Kenny Keene and Dave Sheridan. Kenny Keene placed 10th in the cross-country state championships. He has a 26-2 record in wrestling. And his track, he's a state champion in the 3,200-meter run. He is all state in all 3 sports. Dave Sheridan. Oh, by the way, Kenny Keene is retiring this year at Springfield High School, and I've got to send this article over to them for everything he accomplished. Kenny goes on to at University of Penn and is all Ivy League. Dave Sheridan, his record for the 2-mile run stood for 20 years. His 880-yard run stood for about maybe a couple years. Dave gets a full-time scholarship to Villanova. Villanova is on the eastern side of the state of United States. Oregon's on the western side. These are the 2 elite track and cross-country programs in the nation. If you get a scholarship there, you are top dog in that sport. Golf. Buddy Marucci, 3-time state champion individually for golf. He goes on to the University of Maryland on a scholarship. He also wins the 2008 Pro-Am Championship. And in 1995, he is looked like he's destined to win another one, but he loses by 2 strokes to a very famous person now, but then not so famous, Tiger Woods. Kim Verrocchio down here, she places 5th one year and 10th another year in the PIAA women's golf tournament. She goes to the University of North Carolina on a golf scholarship. And when she comes out, she goes on a pro tour for golf, and she usually is in the top 10 in all her finishes. Volleyball. Ted Kaiser wins 9 state championships in volleyball. He does it because he goes around the hallway recruiting athletes to come to practice at nighttime. And when you win that first one, or you're runner up or whatever it may be, it begins to get easier to get the athletes. What's interesting is Ted Kaiser coached volleyball, soccer, baseball, and golf. And he has a championship team in each one of those sports. He has a total of 747 victories, I think, career-wise, if you add all the sports together. Ted just turned 94, and guess what he's doing today? He is a ping pong champion at 94 years old. And if you remember what he looked like in school, he still looks like that today. This girls' volleyball team down here, they were Central League champions, they were district champion, runner-up, and they were 3rd place in the PIAA. What's unique about this group of girls, they were Central League champions in volleyball, Central League champions in basketball, and Central League champions in lacrosse. Tennis. Nancy Morrison, her whole life is in tennis. To this day, she still does things in tennis. She goes to Drexel on a badminton and tennis scholarship. She graduates. Springfield recruits her to coach tennis. First year, guess what? Springfield High School's girls tennis team win a state championship. Nancy Morrison is a silver medalist in the Olympics, Senior Olympics in singles, and she is a gold medalist in 1995 in the Senior Olympics in doubles. Frank Richardson and Michael Pierce, tennis doubles. Nothing outstanding, just played great tennis. But Michael Pierce picks up squash. He's in several Hall of Fames in squash, but he is the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old, and the 60-year-old national champion. Soccer. Nice story. 2 boys are walking in Merwood Park. They see an empty house, they go in it. One goes upstairs, one goes downstairs. The boy upstairs finds a gun. It's an empty house. What's a gun doing in there? And it just has 1 bullet in it, they later found out. But it just happens to be the 1 bullet. This one fellow fired it. He fires it down to the ground. And that bullet goes through the floor, and the fellow standing below is his friend. He happened to be standing in the position where that bullet went through his side and out the other side. The next day he died. Coach Livingston had a hard time bringing his team together. And they got through the season, and then the following year, and the following year after that, they had some winning records going on here. But they named the MVP award after him, Carl Frank Weisberger. They had quite a few successful soccer teams. This particular one I put in here to balance out the act a little bit. 5th place in the PIAA state soccer tournament. They were Central League and district champions. All right, the girls started the soccer program, and this girl was one part of it, Colleen O'Hara. She is more of a lacrosse person, and she is an All-American, All-Delco All-American honors in lacrosse. Her record today still stands at 69 career goals in girls soccer. This girl here, I would nice article about Brianna Blair. She's not the leading scorer. She's a defensive person. Everything she does is about doing the best and getting all the other girls to do their best. And she's also the Ethel David Award winner during her senior year, which means the outstanding female athlete. And yes, she's not the leading scorer. See, anybody can be that award winner as long as you're the best, and according to the way they vote for you. She goes on to Cabrini, but she's playing basketball as well as soccer. She has 93 rebounds in basketball. Cabrini gets an appearance in the NCAA tournament. She has that on her resume. She also brings home 3 conference championships in soccer. This is what I think the logo should be today for the board. And the finishes up here. Did you know? Right? This is something you put together and you say, how good is Haverford in athletics? When you think about this, since 1914, they've had 284 conference championship teams, 151 conference runner-up teams. 75 of those teams are undefeated. 61 district championship teams. Remember, district championship, 13 district runner-up teams, 17 Delco championship teams, 23 PIAA state championship teams. 14 PIAA state runner-up teams. Individually, 142 individual conference champions, 24 individual conference runner-up athletes. 32 of these athletes were undefeated. 88 individual district champions. 6 of them were runner-up. 44 individual Delco champions. 56 individual PIAA state champions. 36 individual PIAA state runner-up athletes. 48 high school All-Americans. 24 former Haverford athletes played on an NCAA Olympic or professional championship team. 2 former athletes have coached an NCAA Olympic or professional championship team. 7 former athletes were individual NCAA or Olympic or professional champions. Thank you. If you need to get hold of me, there's my email.